will of God for your life, therefore, cannot be fulfilled in isolation. The will of God for your life cannot be fulfilled in isolation. So that's why the local church is God's wisdom on the earth for the fulfilling of his will. You cannot fulfill the will of God in isolation. God works in the church and through the church. The church is God's official agency for carrying out his will on the earth. The church is God's official agency for carrying out his will on the earth. Remember, Jesus said, I will build my church, not the church, my church, which means that the church is not a coinage of Jesus. There were churches before Jesus came. There were churches all over the place. So when Jesus showed up and discovered all those churches were not his church, he now said, well, I will build my own church. There are churches, but I'm building my church. Those churches are not my church. So I'm going to build my ecclesia. The church is an ecclesia. Ecclesia means those that are called out. Called out. An assembly. A gathering. A coming together of men to serve God's purpose. How does the church begin? Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I'm there in their midst. So once there are 2 or 3 people together around the word of God, church has started. You don't need money to rent a hall. You don't need money to buy a microphone. Somebody, a man of God, came to me and said, Dr. Damina, God has called me to start ministry. I want you to sponsor me. I said, sponsor how? He said, give me money to rent all and buy equipment. At least you are already established. Help to establish a brother. I said, that's not how we start ministry. You don't start ministry with microphone. You don't start ministry with equipment. You start ministry with human beings. So if there's a call of God on you to start a ministry, go on the streets and evangelize. When you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people gathered together and you start teaching them the word of God, from within the people you are teaching, the resources to buy microphone will come. Because God owns the people. God owns everything. But you don't start from the top, you start from under. You go on the streets, because God's way of reproducing children is evangelism. We teach it here. That's God's method. He begins by steering men to go for evangelism. So you cannot fulfill the will of God in isolation. That means, therefore, if you are not in the local church, you are not in the will of God. If you are not in the local church, you are not in the will of God, because the local church is God's wisdom for the fulfilling of his will, and you are in the will of God, but you cannot fulfill the will of God in isolation. So you must be a part of the local church, because God will work in the local church and through the local church to carry out his purpose on the earth. He will work in the local church and through the local church to carry out his purpose on the earth.